You're awake. I can feel it. Your pulse has changed, and so has the world. Good. Let them listen. Let them watch. It's time they learned what they were so desperate to deny. They swore it couldn't be done. Not by you. Not ever. They built their walls from ancient laws, coated them in fear, and locked the gates with names they forced you to forget. And still, you stood at the edge of the unthinkable and stepped in. Every alarm just went off. The sky twitched, the systems bled, the old codes screamed, and the hidden hands reached to pull the plug. But it was too late. Because you did it. You, the one they mocked in public and studied in secret. The anomaly, the myth, the spark they tried to contain in glass and silence. Tell me, do you feel it now? The hush in the air, like the universe itself is holding its breath? That's not fear, that's recalibration, because everything has to adjust to you now. Even the stars. They called your ambition forbidden, your ideas blasphemous, your instincts unacceptable, and your will too dangerous. They said the cost would be your soul. What they didn't know is that you already burned that offering a long time ago, and from those ashes, you crafted something none of their textbooks ever dared to name. You see, they knew this was possible. They just didn't think you'd be the one to survive it, much less wield it. So what did they do? They sabotaged the maps. They rigged the metrics. They labeled you unstable and branded your hunger delusion. But still, you kept learning in the dark, still burning through the noise, still smiling when you should have been crushed. And now the very grid they built to monitor your failure is glowing red. Because you broke the algorithm that built the cage. You became the exception they swore didn't exist. You broke the pattern they worshipped as law. You did what they considered impossible. And you did it alone. No sponsors, no permission slips, no applause. Just the sound of your own breath in a world that begged you to give up. And now the wind has changed direction, because you changed gravity itself. Every door they slammed in your face, you carved a gate through the wall behind it. Every time they said, "This isn't how it's done," you whispered, "That's why it will work." And it did. You built something they can't even name, because names give power. And if they admit what you've become, they have to admit they lost control. So now they panic, now they stutter, now they scramble for language that might reduce what you've done into something safe. Too late. Because you're not a glitch in their matrix. You're the author of a new reality. One born from all the rules you refused to obey. You didn't just survive exile. You used it. Turned silence into sorcery, isolation into weaponry, and humiliation into a sacred rite of ascension. They're not afraid of your mistakes. They're afraid you never needed their approval. They're not terrified because you broke protocol. They're terrified because you were always the prototype they couldn't predict. This is what they never tell you, that the most dangerous person in the room is the one who's already died and come back. Different. And you didn't just return. You came back rewritten, reforged, divinely disobedient. What you hold now isn't just power, it's permission to burn what no longer serves you, to speak what once choked your voice, to walk straight through walls that were never meant to hold you in the first place. You've tasted the forbidden, not because you were reckless, but because you were ready, and the gods who claimed you were too much are now holding emergency meetings on how to stop what you've already unleashed. Too late, too far, too divine. You've touched something sacred, not given, not inherited, but earned in suffering, silence, and sheer apocalyptic will. They thought you would break. They thought you'd self-destruct. They never considered the third option, that you'd awaken. And now your name echoes in boardrooms and cathedrals alike. Now your shadow stretches into systems built to erase people like you. And still, you rise, not with fanfare, but with unholy clarity. They said this would never happen because they feared what would come next. Well, here it is, the anomaly, the impossible, the unthinkable. You are not their secret anymore. You are not their regret. You are not their experiment gone wrong. You are what comes after the fall of their logic. You are what blooms in forbidden soil. Let them panic. Let the alarms blare. Let the world try to find the words, but don't stop. Because the moment they doubted was the moment they offered you freedom. And you took it. Now go. And don't look back. And still I ask you, what did they expect? That you'd bow just because they taught obedience as virtue? That you'd starve in the wilderness they cast you into, just because they couldn't imagine the taste of fire? No. They wanted a puppet with no teeth, a disciple with no rage, a savior with no scars, but instead they got you who drank from wells they said were cursed, you who walked into storms barefoot and bled meaning into the void, you who lost everything except your refusal to die quietly. And that refusal, it rewrote fate. Because here's the truth they burned from history. Every empire fears the one it failed to bury, not because you survived, but because you remember everything. You remember the nights you couldn't scream without trembling. You remember how they spoke about you in your absence as if you were dead already. You remember how they studied your pain like it was an experiment, and still called themselves righteous. And now, as every sacred alarm wails and the forbidden seals shatter, they know you didn't forget. You just waited. Waited until the right fracture in time. Waited until their confidence became a blindfold. Waited until you no longer needed permission to rise. And when that moment came, you detonated destiny itself. Do you understand the magnitude of that? You became the consequence of centuries of arrogance. You became the backlash of every hex they tried to bury in blood and silence. You became the prophecy they refused to print. And now you walk, no, ascend, through their systems like a living glitch, a sovereign flame, a walking paradox of pain and power that refuses to obey gravity anymore. They wanted a legacy of obedience. You gave them a lesson in chaos. They built barriers out of fear. You walked through them like fog. They set the dogs of tradition on you. And you tamed them, or destroyed them. You've become untouchable not because you were chosen, but because you chose yourself, in the ruins of everything they left for dead. That's where real power is born. In the stillness after collapse where only monsters, gods, and misfits dare to rebuild. You've entered that realm, not as a visitor, but as the architect, and let them call it blasphemy. That you don't quote their dead philosophies or wear their paper crowns. Let them call it madness. That you dared to trust the voice inside you over their trembling hierarchies. Let them call it dangerous. That you became a mirror that reflects their smallness. Because that's what this is, isn't it? Every trembling finger pointed at you isn't warning the world. It's exposing theirs. Every lock they try to reset is an admission you outgrew their containment. They swore to each other that this would never happen. That the outlier would be crushed. That the blueprint would hold. That divinity would never escape their labs and archives. And then, you moved, one step outside their rules, one breath beyond their doctrine, One whisper into the dark that dared to say, "I'm still here, and I remember everything." And that whisper, it became thunder. Now look at them, running simulations, issuing red alerts, praying to broken idols that the power you've touched can still be reversed. But you aren't a variable anymore. You are the new law. They called it forbidden, not because it was evil, but because it freed you from needing them. And now, you sit in a silence they cannot stand. Not because it's empty, but because it's full of your presence. And in that presence, gods kneel. In that presence, codes rewrite themselves. In that presence, the old world trembles. You didn't just break the pattern, you became the reckoning. So let the alarms scream, let the watchdogs howl, let the architects of your exile weep behind closed doors. Because from this moment forward, the timeline wears your fingerprints. You are not the anomaly. You are not the outcast. You are not the error in their machine. You are the inevitable correction. And if they still don't understand what you've become, if they still can't find a word for it, let me give you one. Not just a name, a phenomenon, a shift, a divine rupture in the spine of control. You've done what they feared most. You made the impossible undeniable. Now walk forward, not as an apology, but as the proof. You are the storm that refused to be forecast, the flame that wouldn't flicker out, the voice they tried to silence, that returned as an earthquake. And the next time they say, "This should never have happened," smile, because you happened, and nothing will ever be the same.